the traditional people they go to all the time. And the group I was with last year certainly did encapsulate that a lot better. In terms of the highlights for some of the kids was the fact that they got to know some people that they probably wouldn't have really, and they knew they were in their year level, but you've got 100 kids or so in your year level and you don't necessarily always know everybody. And so they really said the highlight was, talking to people and getting to know people I don't necessarily know as well was really good, especially in an environment that sort of allows for that, especially with the time that they've got. And so I've constructed the groups, all 7 groups, and I've guaranteed that the students will have at least one of their preferences in their group. And then outside of that is a sort of a group of students who are different, or maybe not necessarily their preferences. And we sort of constructed the groups in that way because I felt like it's a really good balance between having people and having people that you don't necessarily know as well, because then it does allow those really good life skills, which is communicating and working with individuals that you aren't naturally drawn to, because that's part of the world of work and life. And so we constructed the groups in that way. And I think that is really good, especially at this age, that students get out of their comfort zone a little bit. And then also just develop those communication skills in an environment where they can have the time to do it, I think is good. So we've constructed the groups. The students will find out tomorrow who the preference that they have picked they've gotten. So I'll put out a list of student names and preferences of people they're guaranteed to be in a group with. And outside of that, they'll find out on the day who else is in their group and who their leader is. There might be a couple of individuals who might find out beforehand. And if people have questions, I'm more than happy to ask and answer them in regards to certain issues. There might be a few people who may know for they might have sort of health things or whatever. They'll find out a little bit more, but most students will find out on the day who else is in their group. And I put I put hours of effort into it. So I think I've got it hopefully really spot on, that they have a really good experience and they get to know some students outside their probably friendship group, as well as having their friendship group to relate to at the same time. Does that make sense to everybody?
I started talking without being unmuted. So Hugh, really appreciate that you've done that. I know it's time consuming. Also, just let everybody know that I started recording while Hugh was when Hugh started talking. So the presentation will be available as a recording later on. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Birch. Birch has been with the Outdoor Education Group for quite a long time, but has also been with us partnering with New Haven College since the start of our year 10 journey, and also put together the year 9 program at last minute when everything fell over at Wallumbilla.
Oh, there's you.
Oh, and whoever that was, it's lovely to have you here, but if you could just mute that.
that was my 3-year-old, sorry.
Oh, okay, no worries. I'll just swing. He's using my computer, so I'm going to swing around and introduce you to Birch, and there we go.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jason. I'm just going to pull up my slideshow then.
Okay, so just go back to the Teams meeting first.
Okay.
And share screen. And choose from here. And then choose that one. And then start slideshow. Which I think is that one there.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right.
Hugh, can you just confirm that you've got the slideshow up? Excellent.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jason. Jason's been kind enough to host me locally, and as some of you might know, I'll be speaking with the students tomorrow morning early. So I'm coming from quite a travel, so I appreciate the opportunity to present here locally. And I just wanted to my principal aim for this evening is to describe the experience that the students are about to take, and so that you have a good sense of what's ahead for them and how they should prepare for that experience. Certainly tomorrow morning, in the spirit of independence, and one of the aims of the entire experience is for them to become more independent, to take more responsibility for the experience. And so the expectation is not that as parents that we're packing them up and doing all those things, that they're leading that process of getting themselves ready to go on an experience like this, but we're sort of the guides on the side, giving them little nudges and reminders to ensure that they successfully prepare for the experience. A little, this slide in particular just reminds me to comment on the outdoor education group as a whole, that I feel fortunate enough to work for an organization that works at quite a large scale. So we work right across the country in different states. It permits us to have a risk management department, permits us to have a catering department, which is more than just a few people, but a whole team of people who devote their time in that particular area. And so that affords us the opportunity to have those resources applied to programs. One of the major things that schools appreciate is that, you know, the environment and climate is always, weather's always changing. Storm events happen, and sometimes we're in the position where we need to move venues and apply different resources to a program. So that's something we can do quite capably and in a short period of time, and do it quite safely, given the scale that we work at with the number of staff and equipment that we have applied across our program area.
I'm just going to jump in for a second because I think there's someone waiting in the lobby and I can't quite see how to do that once we've started sharing our screen. Sorry. Nope. Back to where we were. My apologies. Right.
We work with a school, we partner with schools to try to understand, you know, the purpose of going into the outdoors. I appreciate Jason's comments at the beginning, which were around, we can put together a number of different activities and put 3 and 4 activities in a day, and students can get quite busy, you know, abseiling and rafting. This particular program really has an educational focus in that students are, they're hiking and carrying a bag, and by doing that challenging physical activity, there is also time in that particular day to reflect, to have time as a group and individually to remember, really, to build memories, to take some meaning from the experience. A lot of times we might be really busy on a program, and it's all over before you know it, and you're back at home, and there isn't the time that we've afforded on program to reflect and you know, have facilitation from outdoor educators as to you know, why you experienced a particular, you know, what was that experience like of having you know, the rain pass overnight or the wind pick up, and you know, make everyone feel nervous for a period of time, but that we were back together as a group again, regrouped. So a lot of experiences happen on program, which this program has time built in to reflect and to take those in. We're certainly very, very big on, and I know the school's big on preparing students with life skills and that life skills that you can gain outside of a classroom setting. So we facilitate towards you know, learning points around cooking and bushcraft, and spending time comfortably in the outdoors, in the hopes that they obviously learn a lot of practical points about outdoor living, but that this is maybe something that they'll continue to pursue after school, after they complete school, and that pursue it as their own personal pursuit. Of course, we don't plan to make anything miserable. We don't plan to have poor weather. We do not plan to have students forget key items. Those things happen on their own. And when those things come up, we have something we call type 2 fun, which is where it's not sunny, you know, the food isn't perfect. There's a lot of things that might happen that at the time you're questioning why this was put forward to you as an enjoyable experience or something that you know you would get a lot of fun from. So we have those times that we pull together as a group, and we get through them, and the next day potentially you're back in stride again. But those moments of type 2 fun are in fact on reflection the kind that we gather meaning from and that people remember. in particular. So we're big on type 2 fun, and it happens all on its own accord. I think it's worth noting that I mentioned before about the risk management. The school sets the bar high with risk management, and I think engages us because we have a high standard for risk management. So the expectations you lay on the school for highly trained, skilled staff with the appropriate qualifications are the same expectations and the same practice we have in our outdoor area. We have a really important thing that students would, our children, our students would agree is completely important, is food, and getting food right. So we've had a long period of time and multiple opportunities to understand what the best food is to serve and to prepare up in an alpine environment like Mount Sterling. And of course, there's all the added to that. There's all kinds of dietary requirements that come with that, and that our catering team has. I can guarantee they've probably seen every possible dietary requirement, and they would say to me, there's nothing that we can't accommodate. So that information is really important, that it's conveyed through school and that it is received by us, and that we can help put the right food in front of the right student in the field. Of course, like any work environment that you're in where there's risk management involved, we also are heavily involved in risk assessment and analysis. And I think the really pertinent point on this is that risk assessment for us, and probably for any best practice workplace, is not a tick and flick exercise. It's not an exercise that's static where you say, oh, well, here we go. This is done. This document can be filed. It's an ongoing and dynamic environment that the students are learning in the outdoors, and we work in. And so we have our risk assessments, they simply don't stop. They get formed ahead of program. They're assessed during program through, I think the next point is around an all-hours contact system. So we have a field duty manager who monitors all forms of severe weather or any weather changes that come through, including any bushfire activity, planned burns, that we can relay that information right to the field. So we have a system of communication that ensures the fact that we've got the right information to the groups on the ground. Medical information. So the key thing with medical information is just that anything specific around trying to meet a challenge like a bush walking activity, that's conveyed through the system you use at school. If there is something that we view as requiring special management in this bush setting, we would certainly have some extra forms for you to fill out. But the medical information that you provide school with in the normal way that you are requested to is something we review, and you might be contacted or have been contacted with and ask for additional questions, simply to make sure that we manage a medical condition or a dietary condition as best as possible in the bush setting. Each group will be divided up to groups of 12. They'll be in the same group for the whole program. There are in the outline, the itinerary, there are some groups that have shadow lines, or they're sort of almost as pairs. They're working their way through, so they might walk a separate track or walk one behind each other. They will operate as a separate group. They might meet at the same hut in the evening time, but each of them are small community. That's part of preserving the educational value around having a small group, is that they operate, cook together, and do that, reflection activities. All their activities are done as that small group. And of course, they might have an opportunity to say hello to another group, but they principally operate as a small group throughout the entire program. And they'll have one OEG staff member, and Jason went through who the New Haven staff are. So we've got a really strong staff set to support students here. 3-person tents. So students will be organized into using three people in a 3-person tent, 3 people, and where it's appropriate, and we've got 2 people, we definitely have a pair in some cases in tents. So I certainly tell the students that if you're in a group of 3, you've got a third of the tent to carry as opposed to half the tent. and the less weight, the better. Where are we going? So we're going to Mount Sterling. I think most of us are probably familiar by now where that sits, just outside Mount Buller. And really the important feature about where it is that it's in the alpine environment. So that's an environment we know is dynamic and changing, and you can get all 4 seasons in one day. You can get certainly a few different seasons in a week. And that's what all the the discussion later on about preparation, that's where that the focus and importance of that lies, is that we're going to the alpine environment. If you look at this particular slide and pay attention to not so much potentially where the locations of where students stay, Craig's Hut might mean something to a few people who to know that is a significant hut. But really the most important part about this is that you're looking at students that are staying, they might base camp for 2 nights at one place where they do a day walk. They might move. I think in all of our lines, we have the students base camping at least once in their week, so that they have the opportunity to not carry heavy pack for one day and actually do a day exploration of the area. We find that Sterling is an excellent place. It proved itself last year with the year 10s that it's really suits where the year 10s are at physically in terms of matching their physical demands, and then also without overdoing it in the sense that they don't come home feeling quite fatigued or broken, that they will be tired, but they're not feeling deflated by an activity that was too much. So I think we just sort of hit a sweet spot on Mount Sterling with the number of groups we have. So some kilometers are indicated. And of course, when we're in an alpine area, the kilometers are indicative. They would not tell you whether you're going up and down, but so they don't tell the complete story. But essentially, students are starting at a place called Telephone Box Junction, and anyone who's skied at Mount Sterling, for example, would be familiar with that place. And essentially, when you're walking there in the non-ski season, it's a great place to gather, get everything ready, and then from there, you're not far away from getting to a number of huts near the summit.
Sorry, I'm just going to swing back in because there's a couple of people in the lobby, including the principal, and it would be wise for me to let them in. So welcome to those people who have just joined, and this is being recorded. Can I just, if you've just joined, can you please mute your mics, and I'll go back to the slideshow from Birch. And also, if you just want to pop something in the chat, any questions, Hugh's monitoring that.
Thanks, Jason. How are you doing?
Yeah, 5%.
Great. The program's aims and action. So to sum up sort of some of the first half of the presentation, and those of you that have just entered in, we're really gathering around the aims, the support behind the program with risk management, and also the aims, the purpose of the program. And the purpose of the program in action are that the students were helping to leave the week with a campcraft experience, in the sense that they could set up a tent with their eyes closed. They can cook capably, wash up. I know some of you won't believe that they're going to be doing some washing up and looking after themselves. I know, it's and eating vegetables and doing some really strange things that they don't do at home. That all of those things will happen, and that's part of the feature of a successful time in the outdoors. And as I mentioned before, there'll be time for the groups to reflect and actually have some time without a heavy pack on their back. The second half of this presentation really is the really important part to focus on is preparation, so that when I spoke about type 2 fun again is not planned, as in the sort of what can happen with rain, what can happen with that. Those are the elements that we're not in our control, but we can certainly be as prepared as possible, in the sense you're preparing for the coldest, wettest, windiest conditions. And then that leaves you with some comfort level if you do happen to have that kind of a challenge. So part of the preparation that we, at least we do on our side, is to get together some nutritious food for students. So what you're looking at in this slide is an actual photo of what students will be presented with on a typical lunch. So out of this not in this picture are some stack of wraps, of which they'll grab a wrap, they'll come around and they'll just pick and choose. And if you think the OAG group leaders or the New Haven staff are chopping all of these things, they're certainly not. It's when we group cook and group prepare, everyone's involved in prepping for this. And once we have it all together, we have put together a lunch. So really good, nutritious food, fresh items where it makes sense that they're not going to have to carry too much of a burden. Dehydrated foods probably in the dinner end of things, where that they might have some dehydrated chicken to go into a sauce that's going to be with a pasta or rice base. So all of those things are the energy that they need for the experience. Again, these are some pictures from a program. Obviously, the one with the river paddles is not an alpine one, but we will set up tarps. So you should test them on the tarpology when they come home, because they should be able to set up a tarp well and teach you a few knots, for example. So make sure you ask when they get home, let them set up something in the backyard for you. You're seeing some of our bush cooking equipment, a giant wok with improvised burners, Trangia burners to do some cooking, and then a giant tarp where we do all the food divvy up and you pick your food pile that you're going to carry in your pack. Certainly, we don't discourage students from bringing snacks. We provide lots of morning tea, afternoon tea, lots of snacks are provided. We don't run out of those. They'll come home with muesli bars in several pockets, I'm sure, that we provided. But you're welcome to bring they're welcome to bring a small, modest amount of snacks. We just ask that there's no nuts involved at all. So they're going to have to pay attention, if you're shopping with them, to pay attention to ingredients so that we don't bring nuts onto program. What we provide, so we provide quite a lot. So we provide all the equipment except for clothing and a sleeping bag. And you can look at the list. And I think the significant thing to take note of is that the rain jacket and overpants are provided. So they're a windproof, waterproof, high quality set of rain gear that's 5 different sizes. So there's lots of ways to make sure that whatever size they might be, that they're going to have something that they can wear comfortably. And it is fit for purpose. It's what they need if they end up with some cold, wet, or even potentially snow conditions. They've got the right gear. So that's what we provide as an outer layer: gaiters, stove, tents, sleeping mat. I think only thing not on that list might be a backpack, which you can see, but a backpack certainly provided, so they don't need to bring a pack. Group tarp, group hygiene equipment. Clothing, this one really just emphasizes the fact, we'll get into more detail, but sturdy footwear will need to be provided by students. So we're just expecting students to wear and bring something sturdy, with more detail to follow there. We're on to sleeping bags. So did you
just kick well.
Yeah, okay. So with a sleeping bag, I think the really important part is that you have something that's rated to 0 degrees, something that's 3 seasons and not a summer bag. So avoid the light summer bag that and it's got, it's purposely made to deal with the cold temperatures down to 0. And you would know your child as to whether or not they're a warm or cold sleeper, whether or not you might put a liner in for them, and how much below 0 you might make that sleeping bag. Obviously, we like to err on the side of having a sleeping bag too warm. So this is something where you approach a family member who does this sort of thing routinely, and will have something they would describe as a 3-season or bag to keep them nice and warm. And if you have something that's a down bag, obviously that's going to require this, your child to provide some extra caution around just keeping it dry, so that particular fabric, when down gets wet, it doesn't keep its insulating properties. So just making sure that if it's down, that it's waterproofed. The OAG group leader will run through how to waterproof your sleeping bag and your entire pack. So that should protect everything from where it might get rain otherwise. So a sleeping bag, to sum it up, a sleeping bag with a hood, sleeping bag liner is a good idea if you want to boost the the warmth rating. And I think Jason's, I'm just seeing pulling out some things. We'll probably just touch on sleeping bags somewhere near the end again. Layering is really an absolute, that's just the core principle of how we're going to do it. We provide the outer layer. So we've got that wet weather layer. Then you go down to your polar fleece and your woolen jumpers as the next layer. And underneath that is a base layer of thermals. So thermals being, you know, stripy, really, I mean, something that's really actually more important, the fabric. So it's either usually polypropylene, a synthetic, or a synthetic combination with wool. And it's a fabric that just simply keeps you, as it gets wet, it transfers the moisture to the outside of the fabric and doesn't allow conduction to keep you cool. So it's not a some students would like to bring tights or leggings, which is fine. It's just not a substitute for thermals. If they're going to bring thermals, or as they bring thermals, is really important. Layering is also something you want to consider in other parts, not just your core part of your body. So in terms of making sure you've got a beanie, for example, a beanie and a sun hat are both, you know, requirements to bring on this program. Also thick socks. So you need to have your Explorer, your thicker socks, which are also a fabric. The consideration for that is a polypropylene or a wool blend to that. So we're really paying attention to the fabrics we bring. I haven't said the C word yet, which in outdoor terms is cotton. And cotton is something we avoid, especially when we go to the Alpine. As soon as cotton gets wet, it becomes that heavy, soaking, non-drying material that conducts heat away from your body. So we're looking at synthetics, and we live in a time when we were spoiled for choice in terms of active wear or things they wear for PE class, which are made typically of a synthetic fabric, which you know, provide that they provide warmth even when they're wet. So my advice around is that if they have some walking shoes, that they definitely, that's something that's they'll benefit from having a pair of hiking shoes or walking boots. That's your sort of A grade selection. Do students all have them? No. So some students will elect to wear a pair of runners for this experience, as long as they're a good pair of runners, a good tread, not a Volley or a Nike Free or something that has no shape or form to the shoe, but something that's a solid trainer runner shoe will be fine. The caution around obviously about acquiring hiking boots and getting walking shoes is that you need to break them in. That's not something that can be done in a matter of days before you go on the trip. Or you'll suffer the blisters that come with getting your shoe to mold to your foot. So that's a caution around that, is to make sure if that's the choice you're going to make, a good choice, that you get them and work them in. A few more things about clothing before I finish up is water bottles. So you're looking to have something that is more of a Nalgene bottle, so something that is a sturdy outdoor water bottle that's not going to, like the example I think in the lower left hand of the lower corner of the slide is a disposable drink bottle, 2-liter bottle that we find that those just they don't last. So getting something that's purpose made for the outdoors would be the recommendation around that. A head torch is obviously really essential. That's really important in terms of providing hands-free cooking light, and yeah, just generally speaking, it's one of the essentials we have on the list. If students can bring everything, so everything that I've spoken about, and packing to the list, and put them all in a soft bag. And what we mean by soft bag is a sausage bag, or like the bag indicated in the slide is a soft sports bag, duffel bag, that when it's empty, it can be just collapsed down and put into a trailer and kept for the week. Hard luggage is not something we like in any amounts, because it's hard to manage it during the week. Maybe, let's see, I'll just have a look here. What we do without, I think we know that mobile phones would sort of break the spell of a program like this. So we We are asking students to leave their mobile phones and have, I think Jason said it right off the top, is that this experience really is profound because it is tech free. It'll be one of the few 5 days periods in their life this year and for several years where they're just going to be not using and bringing their phones. It's an increasing necessity in life, but it's certainly not a necessity with what we're doing. In fact, it's the opposite. So we just want to stay keeping the phones at home, and as well as music devices. There's lots of singing that's done on these sort of programs. Items that will cause grief. If students are trying to replace, maybe they're nervous about the food and not sure what they're going to do, if they try to replace it with a liquid breakfast, that's obviously a weight concern. And bringing too many snacks. Some students show up with a pillowcase full of snacks, which we just have to end up convincing them that it's not a wise idea to have that many snacks. The other items I've touched on, I think it's pretty obvious why singlet tops and short shorts might not be the appropriate thing for this particular trip. And the final thing I'll say is that we've got a portal, like an information website that you can visit. You can go on to type in OEG and you can get yourself landing to a landing page where you can sign in as a New Haven College parent and type in a very simple password that's shown here, and you can get into a place where you can see a clothing list. You can see, I think actually what's worth really highlighting is on the landing page, there is a feminine hygiene section. So there is a section where there is how do you stay, sort of, how do you manage your period on camp? So how is that possible that you can do that? There's some really good advice on that if that's a point of stress, for your child coming into this program, is what to do. Is that is some really valuable information is shared just in the document that's on the landing page. It's worth having a look.
So thanks very much, Birch, and I'm just going to escape out of there. Stop sharing the screen, and now you're back with me. So thanks, Birch, and I'm sure there's probably going to be some questions. And Hugh, have you been monitoring the chat, and has there been any?
There hasn't been any questions. I've just been posting things that I think are relevant. So
no worries. So what I'd like to do is just to share my experience of sleeping bags just for a moment. So this sleeping bag here is my that's my camping out of the back of the car type sleeping bag, caravanning sleeping bag, extra sleeping bag when someone comes to stay the night. You can't fit that in your pack. So this is my hiking sleeping bag. I'll just read the information on the back to you for a second. Oh, it was upside down when I showed you. It's called a Helium 400. It wasn't particularly expensive. Its comfort is down to 4 degrees and its limit is down to -2. So eminently perfect for this, and it will just take up such a small amount of room in my pack compared to trying to get that one into my pack. That literally is going to take up more than a third of the volume of a rucksack. So that's what you're after. It's a great investment if you're going to go out and buy one, because it's going to be a valuable thing. Kids are going to be so keen to continue their hiking careers after the year 10 hike up at Mount Sterling. But it is also possible to reach out to extended family, friends, and borrow a sleeping bag like that. My advice is always, if you're going to borrow a sleeping bag, then always purchase your own liner for it, so that when you're giving the sleeping bag back, it's in nice condition again. My sleeping bag line is made of silk, but you can get a silk cotton combination or anything like that. But it's a wise investment, particularly if you're sharing a sleeping bag. I don't mean sharing one on camp. I mean sharing one because you've borrowed it. Just clear that little one up there. Probably because I'll just turn on the chat and see what's happening. A little bit of chatter there, but I'm very happy if anyone would like to unmute themselves and then just ask the question. If somebody starts talking straight away, just be patient for a moment, and either Hugh, as camp coordinator, Me as head of senior school or Birch as the OEG coordinator will be very happy to answer that. So unmute and ask a question if you've got one. Not all at once, I'll get overwhelmed. While you're forming your question, if you did arrive a little bit later, I was slow letting you in for the lobby. I'm still recording this, and the recording plus the slides from Birch's PowerPoint will be made available tomorrow. I'll just go right back to where I started. And after that acknowledgement of country that spoke about the local traditional owners as well as the Victorian Alps, I just read that bit from Ella and Simone. A couple of weeks ago, Ella was not keen at all about going on camp. This is in 2022. I told her, this is Mum speaking, that life is full of experiences, good and bad. You need to experience all these things. That way you can make up your own mind about them, if it's for you or not. We as a family haven't done any camping. Ella has come home and said we should all go camping and hiking together. Kind regards, Simone. So somewhere in there, I reckon there's a really important message that, yes, some people are going to be apprehensive. Some people are a little bit worried. Some people can't wait to be there. How big are the mountains going to be? How cold's the river the creek going to be, or the river going to be? How much is my pack going to weigh? How far do I have to walk? I really want to go to the toilet in the bush. All of those things, all of those questions and things, but I just think it's one of those things where we step into this space and take advantage of a school that's prioritising a week without technology, prioritising a week away from the school books, prioritising a week of building community. If whoever was going to ask the question, but my kid wants to take a photograph, they'll need their mobile phone. Then absolutely we want them to take photographs as long as they're not using a mobile phone. So it's back to the old digital camera or the old SLR camera, or just rely upon somebody else's photographs when we get back. That's the way to go. No phones, please. Just doing a lot of talking in case someone wants to ask a question. Both Hugh and I are very happy to receive direct messages from people who, that's sector direct messages from people who have got a question of a more personal nature that they don't want to ask in front of the entire 35 or so people who are in the audience at the moment. Feel free to sector message us this evening or tomorrow. And just a reminder that all of our Year 10 students have got an information session with Hugh, the staff members that are going on the hike, and Birch tomorrow morning during assembly time. That's
I guess I could say, Jason, like some people might be worried about it being it's physically, like, you know, how physical, how much hiking are you going to do? I would say it's just like challenging, not even moderately challenging. Like, it's a little bit of physical exercise. You're climbing up some hills or whatever, but it's not actually too bad. And it's not the focus of the camp. It's not a death march camp where you're trying to physically like exhaust the kids to make them get some sort of epiphany about life being better than they think it was. It's nothing like that. And I guess we got the feedback from the OEG. I've been on 2 of these camps, and the staff themselves really like our camp because we don't do that. We're just basically allowing them to have an outdoor experience going from place to place. Hence, we've got one of the 4 nights we're away, 2 nights in a row at one particular point is for that reason. It's not about trying to get them to unpack and pack everything up and then death march to the next point and then let's make them hike all day until they're absolutely exhausted because they'll learn something about themselves. That's not the purpose. I think we've moved beyond that. Hopefully most schools probably move beyond that as a way of trying to improve individual resilience. It's more about getting to know each other and being in an environment that you're not used to. And like as in enjoying a really unique environment that Australia has. And I think it's more about that than physically exhausting. And like at the end of the day, they're still happy, smiling, making dinner for each other and chatting. And that's what it's about more than the physical nature of how much hiking they're going to do. It's moderate. I would describe it as moderate.
Thanks, Hugh, Mr. Fitness himself.
Oh, yeah, I'm not that unfit.
No worries. And I was just going to run through the staff for those that weren't there. So Hugh Wilson, Sarah Taylor, Anthea Bennett, Steve Scott, Mark Tillotson, Brendan Kimber, Stuart Bathgate, as well as Birch and his team from OEG. Look, it's just gone 7:15, so that's a fairly full and comprehensive information session. Hugh and I and Birch will just stay online for a few minutes in case people just want to stay around and ask a question or have a chat. We've been answering a few questions. I'm sure you can see it on the side there. It is trekking because it's not any of the other activities. We're slowing things right down. Is there swimming in the rivers? No, but there is bathing in spots, particularly taking your shoes off and getting your feet in the water at the end of a hike. Anyway, other than that, feel free to leave. And as I said, Hugh and I will just stay, and Birch will just stay around for a few minutes. But I really do thank everybody for attending this evening. Acknowledge that all those group leaders from Newhaven were there, and thank parents for being interested and spending their evening with us. Much appreciated. I can see we've still got 20 people here, 19, 17. Someone's going to stay around to ask a question. 13, 12. I won't stop the recording just yet. In fact, I will, because people might not want to answer the question. So recording and transcribe, stop recording.